How's it going, everybody? Welcome back into the channel. And today we're going to be talking about a few decks that are very fun to play. Not necessarily the best decks to play, but fun to play. Also, I would say some of them are easier to play for new players. So if you're a new player, this will be good for you because these decks that we're going to be talking about are kind of easy to play for the most part. At least the beginning few are. Very simple ideas for the decks and like the cards you want to put in them and stuff like that we're going to talk about. Obviously, the way that we play it does not make it like the definitive way to play these cards, but we want to talk about how we play it and what makes it fun. So the first deck we're going to talk about is Grand Moff Tarkin. Everyone knows that I am a huge green player at the moment, especially Imperial green, because it has a few of my favorite cards in the card game altogether in these colors. So I'll kind of go over a few cards that I think are must-haves in this deck and then kind of the staples, right? So, and then I'll have Matt obviously give his ideas because he goes up against Tarkin a lot because of me. So.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Also, Matt's here.
Waiting for that introduction, wasn't getting any, so she's like, yeah, well, I'll just sit here.
Yeah, that's not bad.
I've gone against Will using Tarkin many a times, and it's annoying because you have to be quick to deal with it, or it gets out of hand real quick.
Yeah, so the way you want to play Tarkin, at least the way that I do, I play double command, right? And the way that you want to play it, and I feel like the way that when it's at its best, is when you are using it to ramp up early game, get your small units out there, right? What makes Tarkin so good is that it's really good early game, and it can survive late game as well. So you want to use ramp to get out your Imperial units, kind of like your, what the heck's it called? You want to get out your General Veers, right? You're buffing up your other Imperial units. You want to get out your TIE Advance to give experience tokens to other Imperial units as well. And then on top of that, Tarkin's ability alone gives you the ability to hand out one free experience token every turn. So that's really good.
Not exactly free, but...
Yeah, that's what I meant. Not free. You have to pay one and use the action to do so. But I'm just saying, like, free as in, like, you don't have to spend a card. That's what I meant. I apologize for that. But you're essentially just putting out these units that are buffing up your other units early game. And because you're using ramp cards like Resupply, like Command, and Super Laser Technician, you're getting out more resources to pump out these smaller units to apply pressure on your opponent. So now your opponent has to decide, are they going to just put things onto the board to kind of like outpace you and do damage to your base? Or are they going to have to use their resources to take care of those things before they start getting up big enough to become a problem, those smaller units? And then if your opponent does kind of slow you down, as in like they're taking away your units, they're using things like Waylay, they're using things like Shoot First to take out your units, and their units are staying alive. Well, the game's continuing as you're getting up your resources. And that's key because you can then, I would say turn 6, well, not turn 6, but when you start getting 6 or 7 resources, you can start taking advantage of it because you can drop your AT-ST. When you have 8 resources, you can go ahead and drop a Blizzard, Assault, AT-AT, Relentless, Devastator. And like when those things come onto the board, their momentum changes because the Blizzard AT-AT will start there. When it attacks a unit, it does the excess damage to another ground unit. So it's good control, right? You're taking out one unit, you're potentially taking out 2, or doing enough damage to where one of your other units can then take out the remaining of that other ground unit, right? Relentless is really, really good if you get to the point where you can play Relentless because you stop your opponent from being able to use their first event card. Yeah. So the event card stoppage for each turn is like really good because the things that are going to deal with the Devastator, the Blizzard Assault, AT-AT, and Relentless are your opponent's event cards, right?
Yeah, it's going to be your Vanquish, your Waylays, your things that exhaust them just to prevent them from dealing damage to you. And Relentless just goes, whatever the first one you play is, you're wasting resources because it doesn't do anything anymore.
Yeah, and that becomes a problem for your opponent. And then the Devastator is another card you drop it, it does however many resources you control damage to one of your opponent's units. So you basically have a free removal unless you're playing up against another green deck using Devastator, and stuff like that.
That is equally beefed up.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just to the point where the deck is solid, and then if the deck continues, it basically allows you to then outpace and outdamage your opponent. Also,
and
yeah, continue.
Yeah.
So my favorite card in the deck, Overwhelming Barrage.
I was just about to say, yep.
Yeah. So like this is where resource ramp comes in for the early game, right? If you can get a Super Laser Technician down, a resupply down as early as turn 4, you can use Overwhelming Barrage if you have, like, let's just say a TIE Fighter down, and you're using experience from Tarkin. Obviously, you're not going to be able to do it all because you have to spend resources to get the other ramp units. But, like, Overwhelming Barrage, you don't necessarily need these big Blizzard AT-ATs, Relentless, Devastator, right? You don't need those things to utilize Overwhelming Barrage effectively. Basically, any card becomes a threat at that point. You basically assess your opponent's board, and you want to get a unit big enough to at least take out 1 to 2 units. I like to take out at least 2 units, right? 1 to 2 units. And then it doesn't count as attack. So you get to attack with that already buffed up character. So if you haven't watched a video of me using Tarkin, there was one match where I had Emperor's Royal Guard. And it was getting experience from TIE Advance, from Tarkin, and it's a Sentinel, because I had an officer on the official on the board. So it was just getting buffed. And then I played Overwhelming Barrage on it as well, and I was able to take out 2 or 3 of Matt's units. He did then suspend it, so I couldn't attack with it when it was like an 11. But still being able to clear your opponent's board, you're setting your opponent back so much. And then Matt didn't get to play a unit right away because he had to try to get that thing suspended and not take the damage. So not only did I clear up his board, he didn't put anything down immediately because he had to deal with that thing to get it out of the way. So, like, it's so good. I just think that Tarkin, what makes Tarkin good as well is that Imperial cards go so well together. His regular card, Grandma Tarkin, allows him to search for top 5 cards. You can play things to search your deck for the vehicles you need or for the units you need. There's just a lot of synergy with the deck and, like, a lot of fun cards to play, you know, that make it really hard to go up against. But yeah, go ahead and do you have anything else to say about the deck?
No, like you pretty much touched, because I was going to touch upon, you know, the Overwhelming Barrage aspect, that like Tarkin's strength lies in he just gets to, you know, you can spend 1 resource a turn and buff up your guys, and then Overwhelming Barrage lets you instantly nuke your opponent's board because they didn't take care of whatever you buffed up.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just really good deck. I think it might be. I don't think it's my number 1 deck to play as far as fun goes right now, because I did just enjoy playing another deck that involves more thinking and stuff like that. And it's going to be on the list. We're going to go over that. But I think Tarkin, as a starting deck, as a base deck, it's so good and it's very easy to pilot. So it makes incoming new players like have a deck easy to play and very viable, at least for now.
The one weakness I can see with the deck right now is that if you don't draw the Relentless, or if you don't get it out, you know, too quickly, it is very susceptible to decks that are heavy on events. Like we said, with the Vanquishes and the Waylays and stuff that get around the fact that you have those experience.
Yes. And not only that, like you're saying there, right? Heavy event decks do kind of handle this, and shield decks handle this deck very well.
Yeah, the idea of like they can tank a hit while dealing damage to you and then finish you off on the respawn the next turn, or just it puts you in a bad position. Exactly.
So like those are some things you have to kind of think about when playing Tarkin if you're going double command. Command doesn't really have like removal events necessarily. It doesn't involve you attacking. You know what I mean?
Command is very heavy on searching and the resource ramp. Yeah. So it doesn't have a lot of the options needed outside of like Overwhelming Barrage
and Command.
Really?
Command allows
command,
you,
yeah.
as one of the abilities, you get to do a friendly unit deals damage to an opposing non-leader unit, which could come in handy. And so you get your resource and you get to potentially take out a unit. But those are really its only two removals. And then like if you're wasting all your turns to buff up one guy and they just waylay it,
and it just gets waylaid,
and then you're set back. So those are things you have to pay attention to, because there are ways to go about going against this deck, but I still think that it's because of the ramp. Late game, if you're able to drop, like, yes, they can bounce your Devastator back to your hand, but then next turn you get to drop it again, so you get to destroy 2 things with 10 damage. So like,
that's a risky thing. That's something like you have to hit it with the Vanquish.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. So this is just the first deck we're going over. I hope you guys enjoyed that one, because like, again, it's one of my favorite decks to play. It's not necessarily the best deck because there are some things that kind of slow it down, but it is just really fun to play. We're gonna go into the second deck now. And I think we're going to go into Hera here. And the reason why Hera is one of, at least for me, the most fun decks to play is because it's so unique as a leader. Now, it doesn't have like a leader ability. Well, it doesn't have a leader action ability, but it has the leader ability where Spectre cards ignore the aspect penalty. And this allows you to play, if you want to play double green with Hera, you can still play things like Kanan, you can play Ezra, you can play Sabine, and you can play what I think is probably the most annoying card. It's so good. When you see this thing played, yes, Spark of the Rebellion, right? I had a match against Matt where Matt played Spark of Rebellion 3 freaking times in a span of 4 turns. And I hated my life because every time, I have a good card. It's gone. Yeah. It's so good. But it's unique because you get to still play like the 2 commands. You don't have to spend the extra for the command card to still get your ramp, and then you can do it that way, right? But you can still play other things like Kanan gives you the ability to get rid of things on top of your opponent's deck. You get to look at the top card of your deck with Ezra and play it. And Sabine is just really good, and because it works so well with Hera, because you are playing the capabilities of playing yellow, you're playing blue, so cunning, vigilance. You're playing aggression cards, which doesn't really count for her because it is other aspects. But you're playing heroic cards. You're getting out other aspects like more often than other decks. You know what I mean? Like, so you're playing, rather than you're playing the 3 aspects normally in other decks, right? You're playing 5. You're essentially playing 5 aspects. And then it makes it so Sabine can't be attacked. And Hera, when she attacks, right, I believe it's when she gets an experience token to the unique units, buffing up the other Spectre units. So it's very unique. And this is before even Zeb comes out, and I'm assuming Chopper is going to come out, right? You gotta hope Chopper comes out, right? So the deck is only going to get better. Because even just with the Spark of Rebellion reveal, the deck got a lot better. Because it's a Spectre event. And you can discard cards from your opponent's hand, which is so valuable. Another thing that's really good with the Spectre cards is that they're all Rebel cards, so you can use the cards that go with that. So you can use your Fleet Lieutenants, you can use your Wing Leaders, you can use General Dodona, whatever, to then buff up your Rebels. So essentially, you can go ahead and you can get Sabine out there, buff her up a bunch of times because she can't be attacked if you have all these things out. It's really fun. It's another easy deck to play for the most part, but you're utilizing the Spectre cards and playing them with other Rebels to buff them up, at least the way that we play it.
Mainly, this card serves as a direct way to maximize the effectiveness of Kanan.
Yes.
Kanan's ability scales based on the amount of friendly Spectre units you have on the board.
Yes.
So
Hera might become the mill deck. Not really, but you never know.
I mean, it's not a lot of cards that have a mill effect as of right now. So it'd be interesting to see where they go with that. But again, they're still releasing cards. So hopefully we can see even more like Spectre stuff come out, and you can really make like a full Spectre deck. Like there are a lot of sort of like subgroups in the game, Imperials, Rebels, and stuff like that, that have more support than others.
Yes.
It's what makes Like Tarkin's so good is because Imperial has started off with a crud ton of support. So it's easy to build around it. Rebels has some too, but like the niche ones like Spectre or the Underworld or Officials and stuff like that don't have the most support to it, so you can't really build too much around it.
Yeah.
But Hera is a good building block for that because as more Spectre cards come out, it's just free to put in her deck.
Exactly.
There's no penalty for you to do so.
Also, anyone who knows me, I'm a huge Rebels fan. So obviously that's why it was one of my first decks that I built.
Once he saw it was there.
Yeah, exactly. Also, being able to use You're My Only Hope in any deck, that is just good. So any deck that can use that is just good. Let's go ahead and hop into our next deck that we're going to kind of talk about. And we're going to talk about Leia Organa. This is going to be kind of a quick one. Another easy deck to play when you are just starting out. You can kind of play her with any color and she'll still be good. Her big thing is that you can use an action, attack with a rebel unit, then you may attack with another rebel unit. It's just aggression. Being able to attack with two things in one action is just so good. And just essentially you're just attacking with a bunch of rebels, boosting up rebels with other rebel cards, as we've been talking about. Again, another one of these decks that, because rebels got so much support early, it was just a fun deck to play early on. You're just swinging with rebels, swinging with other rebels, and kind of just going like full swing, shooty happy on your opponent's base. Again, a very easy deck to start off with.
And if you notice the theme here, all these decks have been green so far because, like we've explained, green is just very good. Even if you're just like it's half your deck.
Yes.
If you're running green heroic and then something else, or green villainy and something else, like green has the lovely tools that allow for ramp, which it's not really a thing with the other colors or aspects.
Yeah.
So the ability to steamroll in this game is key.
Yes, and so at least with Leia here, right? I think that playing her with blue would do really good, right? Because you're adding in more things to give other things shield, right? I think that's the good combo with Leia. If you're going to throw in a color, you're going to throw in Vigilance, you're going to try to throw in some Restore, because you're able to attack with multiple Rebel units. There are some Rebel blues that you can attack with, but there are also some good Sentinels and good cards that can kind of add shields around your cards. Like the Restore Arc 170 can heal you up, Yoda can heal you up. You have your Sentinel with Obi-Wan, right? So there are other Sentinels as well. But then you also have your Distant Patroller that when it's defeated, you can give a shield unit to one of your other units. It can kind of just work really well with Leia because you can kind of keep your things on the board longer. Also, in my Leia deck, I do play Double Command. I don't play it with blue just yet. I have tested it with blue. I probably will show a video of me playing it with blue. But I do play Overwhelming Barrage in it. Now, I do have to pay the 2 extra for the aspect penalty of Overwhelming Barrage, but a 7 cost to then still control your opponent's field. It's just too good not to use. Like, if any command deck, if you have any green, maybe not 3 of, but throw Overwhelming Barrage in there. 7 cost to still buff up your unit +2/+2 for the turn and get rid of other people's. It's just good. It's just really good.
And the way the game is played, there's no counterplay to that. Like once you play a card, it's been played.
Yeah.
So unless you have something like Relentless that stops those first event cards from each of your opponents activating, there's nothing to stop your opponent. Just be like, all right, I play this. You have to deal with the consequences now.
Exactly. So sometimes it just be what it be. We're gonna also go over the next deck now, and this is actually one of Matt's favorites, so I'll kind of let him take the reign here. This is Chewie.
We got Chewie over here. So Chewie's Vigilance, and a lot of themes of the Vigilance cards is a healing, blocking, stuff along that nature. And Chewie has a lovely ability that synergizes well with a few number of cards, where he gets to play a unit that costs 3 or less. Straight from your hand, you have to pay its cost, but it gets Sentinel for the whole rest of the phase. Now there are a couple of cards that work with this really well. My favorite is the Millennium Falcon because it's a 3 cost that automatically comes into battle readied. You don't need to wait a turn to use it. With decent stats, I believe it's a 3/4.
Yeah.
But at the end, when you're in the end phase, after you are refreshing readying up all your cards that were exhausted and whatnot, you can decide whether or not you want to pay like an upkeep cost for a Millennium Falcon or send it back to your hand. With Chewie's thing, that basically means I can throw Millennium Falcon down, block a shot that I know is coming, and then bring the Millennium Falcon back to my hand and rid it of all its damage, and then bring it back the next turn for that thing to block again, clean and fresh.
Mm-hmm. Now, what's really good, and like if you haven't seen that video, Matt used it very well, is that early on, especially, doing that with the Millennium Falcon gives you control of space. Because normally in the beginning, other people are playing cards that do 2-1 for 2 cost, right? The 2 cost, right? So they're low cost flying units that can't swing over the Millennium Falcon. So you have to have your opponent kind of make the decision whether or not to swing into the Millennium Falcon. And if they do that and they don't destroy it, then he doesn't pay and he gets it back, right? Which then it just is just useless. So then essentially, your opponent has to basically give up attacks in space in the early game, which I had to do. I literally did not attack in space for the first like half of the game because Millennium Falcon kept coming out with Sentinel, and Millennium Falcon comes out untapped, and he got to attack my base every turn. So it's a really good beginning card for early space control.
And honestly, I probably should have been using that opportunity to take out your space, your space units in that moment, knowing that I would live the encounter. You don't have anything else to hit Millennium Falcon with, and I could still just bring it back and still threaten you the same way.
Exactly. So that card is just really good. Chewie.
I personally like to run Chewie with yellow. Because yellow has cards like Waylay and Shoot First, that the things that I can't exactly block with those low cost Sentinels I can get out of hand. Or Chewie himself having the combination of when you activate him as a leader unit, he has Sentinel plus Grit, which for every point of damage he has, he gets +1 to his strength.
Yeah. Not only that,
hitting that, if he tanks a big hit and then you have Shoot First, you have an absolute nuke you can drop on an enemy unit without any consequences.
Yep. Not only that, though, adding cutting to your deck, you have to play with Han Solo. Han Solo is great.
Yeah.
Han Solo is very great. It's basically, as long as you kill a thing, it's shoot first without having to use shoot first. And it's so good. It's good. Matt was using it to control my side of the board, right?
7 costs, but it's a 6/6, and it comes with ambush, and he deals damage before the defender.
Yeah.
So as long as you're making sure you're killing your whoever he's targeting, he's getting away scot-free, and it's just a lovely card.
Yeah, it's just so good. I do like the way it's very consistent deck as well, because it's like you're basically outliving your opponent, giving things Sentinel. Your opponent can't attack your base, stuff like that. It's just it gets to the point where it's crazy. So Chewie, very good. And I don't think it's necessarily a hard deck to play, but it's just consistent and it's pretty solid. And again, Chewie buffs himself up when it takes damage and all that stuff. That's always good to see. So
like I was saying earlier, as the game comes out with more cards and we see more support for some of the other archetypes like Underworld, the deck could get even better, because right now there isn't a lot of like cohesion there. It's just kind of understanding Chewbacca is good at taking the low-cost cards and throwing them out there and forcing them to either take the hits or just force your opponent to rethink their plans. And there's a few blue and yellow cards, and like I said, I like to run blue-yellow, like the Distant Patroller. Yeah, when it's defeated, it gets to give a shield to another Vigilance unit. So forcing it to take a hit so to make another unit tankier is great. There's Greedo for yellow, who has an on-defeat ability as well, and he's a 3/1. So forcing your opponent to just smack Greedo and take some hefty damage for it, and then I could potentially do more based on what I do with his ability.
Yeah. He has hopefully they do add more.
He's got some tricks.
Yeah, he's got tricks. But you want to know who has the most tricks? This is my #1 deck to play right now, just because of how fun it is. I think it's like a little bit harder to play for newer players, but if you're an experienced player, in other card games, stuff like that, Grand Admiral Trawn, he's so good, mainly because like his ability is super unique. It's when the action phase starts, you look at the top card of each person's deck, right? So you get to know what your opponent has on top of their deck. So you get to know what they have in their deck, which is very valuable. You can kind of play around that as well. But not only that, though, you can spend 1 and suspend to then reveal one of the top cards of the deck and suspend one of your opponent's units based on the number of cost of the unit that you like revealed, right? So I'm gonna go over a scenario that happened during the game between Chewie and Thrawn. And again, if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. Link to that will be down below. But he had just put out Chewie the turn before, right? I had grabbed initiative, and I saw it was on top of my deck, and I was able to reveal my AT-AT, which is an 8 cost, suspend his Chewie, use my AT-ST to attack Chewie. It lived, but then I had Bosk in my hand to then use ambush and then kill it. So the thing is that, yes, I lost 2 units, but if I had left Chewie on the board,
I would have smacked him for an impressive
10 damage.
10 hit on his base, which would have made a significant difference in how the pacing of the match was going.
Exactly. But because I was able to suspend it and then play around that, like that, it's so good. I also play Grand Admiral Thrawn with command. Being able to play overall in Barrage, it's just a common theme for me. It's just so good.
Which Will did mention that in that game I played Spark Rebellion like 3 times in the course of 4 turns, and that was the first card I got rid of when I played that. I'm like, nope. I'm like, you have Boba Fett in your hand, you have Bosk in your hand. I'm getting rid of this card because this card's going to be a pain in my butt later on.
Yeah, so he ended up getting rid of Overwhelming Barrage. He got rid of I Am Your Father, and he got rid of a Blizzard AT-AT, which I did then draw later on, which did make the difference in the match, because Chewie being unsuspended there, he would have probably taken out one of my cards, because I believe he had Shoot First in his hand at the time.
Very possible.
Yes, so he would have been able to take out by AT-ST and being able to keep Chewie with Sentinel on the board. Yeah, it would have just been very bad. Or he could have just shot my base and did 10 damage. It's just also very, very bad.
I mean, I ended up taking out the AT-ST with Han Solo shortly after, so...
Exactly. So, like, it's just the suspend plays that you can do really, really can, like, you can do some crazy things. And you're adding cards like He's No Good to Me Dead, and stuff like that to suspend other cards using not only his ability, but there are other event cards to suspend your opponent's board. It's one of the best control decks out there, in my opinion. And because it gives you deck knowledge of your opponent, it's really good. And how I was playing it with command. I was playing it as a control deck, right? So you're using ambush with Boss to take out units, and then playing events dealing damage to other units. You're using Boba Fett to attack suspended units to then deal the 3 damage and deal another 3 damage. 6 damage on a unit is pretty solid. I can use Fett's Fire Spray to pay 2 and exhaust one of your opponent's units, as long as it's a non-unique unit, and stuff like that. So there's other ways to suspend your opponent's like cards and stuff like that. But another way I was thinking about playing the deck, and I might try it out, is trying to go maybe a full Imperial build with it, because Thrawn is an Imperial. That might work, but I do think the control aspect of it is a more fun way to play. It makes you think pretty much every single turn, and I think it's just very good because also it can get your opponent frustrated and they can make some misplays, because I believe that Matt made a misplay. I don't think he was frustrated at the time, but he played Waylay on Bosk, and that was the turning point. That was the absolute turning point.
Because if I had not done that, the Bosk would have remained on the field, but he wouldn't have been able to be played again for the instant ambush on Chewbacca, which was the big issue.
Well, not only that, though, after you played Waylay, I instantly played an AT-ST.
Yeah, that too. It was just like, I blew this way too early, but it's
an all learning process. But yeah, so those are like 5 decks that we really have a lot of fun playing. Again, not necessarily the best decks. They're the best decks to me, as in like the way that I play, the way that I enjoy playing, and the way I have the most fun. But again, these are our top 5 fun decks to play, and we'll go over more decks, and probably like later on in more discussion videos, we'll go over like our top favorite cards in the game as well. So maybe some staple cards in each deck, in each color. But with that being said, I think we're gonna go on and get out of here, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See you
later, guys.